Hi, and welcome to the Dev Leader podcast. My name is Nick Cosentino, and I'm a Principal Software Engineering Manager at Microsoft. In this video interview, I was joined by Adrian Stanek, who's held multiple CTO positions over the past decade plus. And we got chatting about engineering leadership. And hold on, if you're a software engineer and you're not thinking about moving into management, this is still a very valuable video for you. I thought the interview was awesome because we went through leadership principles. And yes, as an engineering manager, a lot of these things really ring true for me, so I really enjoyed the conversation. But we kept coming back to even different roles like individual contributors and how these leadership principles can be very applicable to you and your career growth. Sit back, enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Cool. Well, Adrian, do you want to go ahead and kick us off with giving a little bit of background for how you got to where you are today? You can start as early as you want, whatever seems relevant.
The most early and relevant thing I know from myself is when I started to actually code, and that was with the age of 8.
Wow. Okay.
on a C64. I was barely able to read the manual because you needed to read the manual of BASIC to actually write BASIC. And it wasn't very good writing, so probably not junior level, but it continued. So I always loved to do something for others. And I wanted to build this game for my mother because she was sitting in front of the TV back then. So I'm 41 now. It's a little bit in the past. I'm a generation Xennial, so it's a micro generation, and I grew up in the traditional world and grew up in the and there was this game on the TV show. It's called Super Ball, not ball, but the ball which is rolling, and there was a joystick person there, and you needed to say by phone left, right, and my mother was watching that one, and she never got through, and I wanted to build this game for her.
Okay.
Well, 4 years later, I was able to do that. But that was my first goal. So to solve a problem I have imagined my mother had. She never played it. But so first MVP was actually wrong target group. But that's another topic, right? That was my starting. Then basically I got into this industry via a different domain. So I'm basically media person and IT person. I'm basically a state certified engineer, became that quite late in my career. And I'm a big fan of agile methodologies. I'm still doing engineering myself, even though I was 15 years self-employed as an entrepreneur, mainly in the CTO role, a little bit in the engineering as well. So coding myself. Today I'm founder again. That's what I am. So I'm still a totally free person. So I have no boss, and I still like to solve problems for other people and try to still find my target groups. Right.
Awesome. Yeah. No, that's cool though. But so early on, like it was like coding had your interest, but it sounds like along the way it was not just like a code path until you got to where you are, like sort of divergent from what I might call like a typical, like a lot of people I think perceive like, oh, a software developer, you must have started probably at the earliest age you could possibly start, right? You were born with a keyboard in hand, you were typing code, and then that's all you did for like 20 years until you went to college or university. Like that's, I think people imagine something like that, but that's not the case for how you got to where you are.
Yeah, so coding was a important part in my life, but not the only one, right? So I was doing a lot of things in my life, and coding and creating software was like one of these things where you always bounce back to that. It is always like this was some kind of, that was the general path. So no matter what I did, coding was a part of it, but never essentially the primary part. This is the reason why I never got into freelancing for coding, because I never did full-time coding. I was an entrepreneur, I was a media technician, I was a video creator, I was a lot of things, right? But I was never a pure software developer.
And this is just a brief interruption to remind you that I do have courses available on Dome Train focused on C#. So whether you're interested in getting started in C#, looking for a little bit more of an intermediate course focused on object-oriented programming and some async programming, or are you just looking to update your refactoring skills and see some examples that we can walk through together, you can go ahead and check them out by visiting the links in the description and the comment below. Thanks, and back to the video. Yeah, it wasn't the sole focus of what you were doing, but all of these things that you were doing, coding had like a relevancy to that.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay. And I guess, how did you know, or I don't know for different individuals, being an entrepreneur and like kind of deciding I'm going to go down this path? Was this something that happened like more naturally for you, or what, like out of necessity, out of like a, you know, some coincidence? Like what did that look like to start going down that path?
So I was in the media domain primarily for print and media, these kind of things. I was still in the traditional time, 20 years ago, pretty big thing here in Germany as well, especially. And I met so I wanted to get out of that domain because it was a little bit too traditional for me. So I met my business partner back then. So my future business partner, and he actually told me that in a long story that, hey, that's actually exactly what we need. We were thinking about future things, and he was realizing that I could create the tools because I always was good in coding and creating software and basically solving problems. So my idea was actually doing something with that company regarding, it was for franchise systems like Subway restaurants, Remax, and these kind of things. It was a little bit back about the media-driven things, media technology, media engineering, those kind of things. But then it came to, hey, you could actually build all the tools we need, like software which automates everything. And this is what I then done again. So again, it pulled me into direction of software development, and then I basically became the role of the CTO. And so it was a bit of a hands-on CTO, I would say, even though I wasn't calling it CTO because the term wasn't used in Germany back then. So it was basically head of technology, and I was basically part of the executive and the owners of the company. That is how I started to become an entrepreneur, actually.
Interesting. Okay, so yeah, there's like an opportunity that kind of comes up in what might seem like a natural way, and then kind of leveraging your interests and skill sets, like, you know, leaning into that, starting to build things, and yeah, like a natural fit into that opportunity. That's cool. Awesome. Okay, so you've had these experiences over time, but I know we wanted to be able to talk through like leadership principles and what that might look like. So maybe for some background when it comes to leadership from your experience and background, how, like, what sort of groups, like teams and stuff, have you like been able to work with? It just for some background and context for, you know, if someone's managed like you know, several small groups versus like larger organizations, I think the context is kind of helpful to navigate the conversation.
I was always, first of all, in the small to medium-sized area, not in the large area, even though that the strange things, our clients were mainly enterprises. So we had large enterprises, or still have large enterprises as clients, and we worked there with the teams as well. So I had some strange leadership roles. It was very spread and scattered. So I actually had a lot of teams everywhere. So I was early on like a consultant for other companies, working, leading teams, coaching teams while having my own teams. So we always had several smaller teams, and we were working together with other teams of large companies. And my job was somehow, I always got into this leadership role, even though I haven't asked for it. I always got there into, right? And that was the reason. So it was a little bit like, you can say small to medium sized to enterprise at the same time. Very strange, not very common, I think. But that is how I got so much insights from all those areas. But I try to, when I talk about those things, I try to focus myself on small to medium sized businesses, because this is where actually my root is, right? So this is where I am right now. No.
That makes sense. Okay, so like, yeah, maybe let's walk through your leadership principles, because I think when we were talking briefly ahead of time, I was like, all those things like really check out with me, like I align with them. And I think from talking ahead of time as well, you were saying this isn't like a process. It's not like these are ordered steps or anything, but these are foundational pillars from your perspective that you think like that really help, you know, create a good leader, and cover different bases. So do you maybe want to kick us off with, you know, one of them, and we can start walking through that?
So to rebuild up on what you just said, many people expect playbooks, they expect SOPs, they expect so many things when it comes to leadership. Right. Leadership isn't management. Management is management. That's the bureaucracy thing, right? You manage things to make things possible. On the physical side, you make you create budgets, you create headcounts, you make things possible. This is management, right? You create time space for people to grow or something like that. Leadership is a little bit different, in my opinion. Leadership is what happens between the people. It is the relationship. It is like you are the leader, and there are following people. So are people following you from A to B on a journey. So that's the idea of the journey is there. So there's a transition in the company. You want to create a product. You want to make a migration. This is a journey. And the leadership is, how you lead them with trust, of course, and credibility, and that's the first topic we will talk about, to point B. That is what you actually need to learn, and there is no playbook for that. You can use playbooks to support that, but in order to be effective, you need to understand the basics by yourself, because it's human with humans. So there is no system in between. It is in our brains, it is the wirings we have, it is how we are cognitive wired, the habits, virtues, resistance versus muse, all those kind of topics, right? The inner resistance is so strong in us humans, and it plays a huge role. And if you don't understand that, no system will help you, right? And that is what I would like to talk about today, right? Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. I think that just to add to that, though, I think for folks that are going to be watching and listening, like one of the huge takeaways that I get from that like for individuals, it might be like, well, I'm not managing, I'm not leading. And it's like, even if you're like an individual contributor going through your career journey and you never plan to actually like formally take on like a management role or something like that, even going from like junior to mid-level to senior, there's leadership traits that kick in. They become expectations through different levels. And so I just wanted to add that, like, if you're like, I don't know if that's going to be applicable to me, like, it is. Like 100%, it's going to help. This is why I love to talk about soft skills and things that aren't just like, how do we code better? What's the newest, latest, tech stack? Like all this other stuff is so important. And I think a lot of the time people forget it. Didn't mean to interrupt you. Credibility. Let's go.
A good discussion is about interruptions when it's necessary. So don't be, that's all fine. Okay. Credibility. It's one of the 4 pillars. First of all, it can be a little bit more pillars, of course, but those are the main pillars which are always returning. Sure. That's very interesting. So credibility. So why I'm saying this is actually that I always say you have to become credible before you can be incredible. So which means that we all know what things like resistance is. So we in most languages we have specific words for that, because it is so old, the idea of that, because everyone does have that, and no matter how good you become, you will have that. It will continue to be there. So you are extremely successful today, you go to bed, you are really looking forward for the next day, and next day you don't want to stand up. So it is a little bit like this is what resistance is. Resistance is this inner enemy we have, which is not us, but it is the main cause so many people of us, so many managers are not credible persons, because they tell others to be on point, to deliver on point, to do these kind of things, but they don't do them themselves. It's like there are no examples in that moment. So It is a little bit like before you can create authority, you need to have clear credibility. And credibility is not what you do in that moment. It is actually what you do as the result of that. But it is not like something you say I have. It's something people see in you. So that is the first thing you need to understand. If you are not worth following, then you are not a leader. You are maybe a manager in role, but not a leader in the actual, that's your position in the team when you actually go when it comes to relationships. So no one is actually following you. No one is saying in a natural way that this person, we follow this person because this person is leading us to a better place. That is extremely old. This is for centuries in the heads of human beings, wired like that. And I think
people can probably, like, if they were to stop for a moment and think about like interactions on teams they've had, there's, depending on people's experience levels, right? There's probably individuals who can think like, on this team or on this project in this scenario, there's probably individuals that like just stood out as like, man, like I want to, like that person, like I like what they're doing. They got good answers. They write good code. They're helpful. Like there's all these like traits where you want to kind of follow that person because they're demonstrating such good examples. And there's probably other situations that's the exact opposite. And maybe someone in a team lead or tech lead position formally, and you're like working with this person sucks because like I don't feel like I want to follow them. They're just saying things and you're like, they can say whatever they want. And there's like this friction where it doesn't feel right to just like blindly go do what they're doing or do what they're saying. So
yeah. So one aspect can be as well to be very honest now. So if you try to lead a tech team of developers and you don't know anything about development, right? You have never developed yourself. It is extremely hard to get credibility because people will judge you by how good you are actually in your craft as well.
Right.
You know, can you understand? It doesn't mean you need to be the best one, but you actually need to understand them in order to make good decisions or help to make good decisions. You know, how to, you know, that is something else as well. So we need to be able to create credibility in a room where we are for ourselves. And when you can do that, others can do so as well. So they will be, of course, inspired by you as a leadership person who is doing that and try to be good in some other things as well. This is where everyone tries to become or will actually become. You nurture people, you nurture a culture where people try to be a specific good part of the team. I am very good in front-end development. In UX, I understand I can talk to clients well. I take this position. I want to become credible there. But there is this basis credibility, this where you really need to deliver on what you say. So only deliver, or basically only say you will do something, commit to things you actually willing to commit to as well, you're willing to deliver to on a regular basis. That is the very part of it. So if you are a leadership person, you always show up, you are always there, you will always help the people. That is the very basic. You always understand at least part of the problem, that you can help them adequately. So otherwise they don't come to you. So those kind of things are extremely important to understand. That's a big topic actually, but it is extremely important to understand. Yeah.
And I think on that note too, this idea of, you know, consistently kind of showing up and being accountable, it backfires if you say those things. You're trying to build credibility, but then you're not consistently backing it up, because if you're failing to do so consistently, like I will take accountability for X, for Y, for Z, and then your people around you are noticing like, okay, you said that, but you're not. The credibility part erodes, like I would say, significantly faster than you can build it up. So it's important to actually back up what you're saying.
Exactly, and it's extremely hard to get back there, and that's just, you know, it's like the idea of the baseline of when you have discipline. So credibility and discipline are heavily connected, which is just not a pillar, because for actual leadership, it is more like a personal thing. So you should have a personal baseline where you say, I do specific things and I commit to them every day, but it's a set of commitments I definitely can do every day. I don't overcommit to things I would like to do and then I fail to deliver, which is basically the opposite of credibility.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. Awesome. Do you want to jump to the next one, the role model one?
So the role model one is very much something which there's a transition into that one. So you are the first role model in the team. So which means that, so in worst case scenario, but oftentimes it is. So you see a new team, there are no role models yet, people don't know each other very well, and you join, you're supposed to be the leader, the management person. And what you do actually is to show, I'm not the boss. I'm a role model for a leadership person. So what is leadership about? Leadership is about ownership. It's about maturity, right? So it is about to show that we can do great things as a team. We can do that journey. We can create something great, and we will all become better on this journey. And you need to live that. You are the living example of the first protagonist in that story. And you tell the others, or you narrate that to the others, that you can be those protagonists as well. We are a group of heroes on that journey. That is the 3-act structure, standard, the hero's journey, story, right? The story of stories. This is what everyone understands, the story of everything, right? And we need to be the role model, the first one who's actually leading. So when you become a role model, which is actually, you stand for something and you are an exemplar, you are very good in that. You're basically a good example in that moment. That is important to understand, because others will do so as well. As I said in the credibility part already, a little bit teased that point, is the others will do so as well. They will see, okay, there's this leadership person, and what I can really contribute to that team is that specific part. I can sometimes even, you have people in the team which are maybe not developers, but they can support the developers with managing stuff, or something like project managers, designers, those kind of things. So you need to invoke the idea of everyone needs to be a role model in his part, but you are the first one. So the role model is not to be the best one, right? It is about to invoke ownership of specific parts of the domain we are in by specific people who can do the job best. So to have a team which basically completes it by itself. So that's the basic idea behind the idea of be a role model, not a boss, because boss is the opposite thing. So boss is like, I tell you to do that, I tell you to do that. In that moment, you ripped away ownership because you are the owner of that stuff. You just tell other people to do that. Why should they take ownership? Exactly.
Yeah, go do this thing. Here's how I want it done, and I expect it by X time, and go do it. Like now, the autonomy, the ownership for those individuals it's not there.
It basically cannot grow. So it doesn't work in existing teams and it doesn't work in new teams. So the idea of the role model is actually to make sure that you create a culture where everyone is willing to take ownership. That's the basic around that. So everyone does have strengths and weaknesses, and the team should admit to them, and should celebrate the good things and be tolerant about the bad things, so we all learn, right? And you need to be a role model in that, which means I don't tell you, you tell, and I'm the first one who is actually living that for the team. So that's the second aspect. I think it's very important.
Well, I really like what you said too around the idea that to be a role model, the requirement is not you must be the best, right? I think for some people, if you're thinking about, okay, I want to be a role model, I want to demonstrate this type of thing, but like if the prerequisite for you is, well, I must be the best, then it might be something that's like holding you back from just being able to start with that. And I like that because you can start, and it's almost like just by demonstrating to others that you are taking action, that you are taking initiative, and you're being accountable. Just that momentum, I think, is one of the key parts that then other people can go, I can do that too. Like the way that you talk about it being a journey for everyone, like you don't need to have the best person to be able to start that. But if everyone starts taking steps forward in that, then I think that everyone starts improving as well. So, and then to your point, you start to find these opportunities where we're probably naturally within the group, you may end up being the best or the go-to person, but it's not like a necessity to start it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a very good perspective on that one. I really like that one.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And again, for individuals, it's like you might be junior right now, right? It's like one classic thing that I've heard come up for people. It's not like the most common thing, but it does happen where like especially at smaller companies, like, or even at larger companies where there's reorgs and stuff, it's like our manager's gone. They got reorged, or manager left a startup or something. So now our team has, like, we report directly to the CTO or the CEO, and we used to have like, you know, a manager and a skip level, or this happens like at Microsoft, it happens at small companies. But I've heard of people in this situation, they're like, well, we're screwed, right? Like our manager's gone. And it's like, are you though? Because in other situations, there's people who kind of step up to that. Doesn't mean that they become the manager and like they're having career conversations with people. Like that's part of the role and the responsibilities of a manager. But there's people that step up and become the role model, and they're like sort of naturally leading the group. They're saying, hey, look, we don't have to be screwed here. Like, we're, to your point, we're on this journey. We were always on this journey trying to make things better, trying to be better. Let's keep going.
Exactly.
No manager.
And that is, so not the boss, right? You don't have the micromanaging boss type, because if this person gets lost, you have basically a gap which is hard to fill. And, you know, in the other way around, the next one will step up and say, I saw that, I had a role model, now I will become that role model. That's actually very basic human psychology, I would even say. This is how we act in real life as well, right? In groups, when we are on a run, on a hike or something like that. We act like this. So we know naturally who is actually the leader in the moment, without saying, you have a badge now, or this is some kind of contract we have with you. We follow you because we trust that it's a good idea to follow you, right? And then we learn and become better, because if that leader is providing us enough space to become better ourselves in what we do, then when we can be a role model in that one and grow and become eventually a team lead, an engineering manager, or whatever type of leader you want to be in the future, right?
Yeah, and a quick note on one of the last things you were saying there. This is, I don't know why, but I feel like over the last few weeks or something, this has been like a topic that's been on my mind a lot. But you keep saying this idea of like creating space and providing like, room to grow. And I feel like this gets missed a lot. And I don't know if this is, I've been trying to think about this, right? Is this more of like an engineering mindset where you're trying to be someone in a leadership position. You're trying to take responsibility and ownership of a project or deliverables, which is a great opportunity for managers, for individual contributors, some ownership over something. But that means you have other people contributing, let's say. And because you have ownership and responsibility, you're kind of like, okay, well, I need to tell this person how to do it. I'm responsible for it. I have in my head something I figured out that's the right way to do it or the best way. So let me just tell these people how to go do it. And I think that I think it comes from a good place, but I think it backfires a lot of the time because maybe in the short term, not so bad, but over a long period of time, people are like, I don't have autonomy.
So I think the problem with software engineers in particular is we often compare ourselves to plumbers and line workers and these kind of things, and we are not. We are definitely not. So we are creative persons. We built on something. We don't know how it will look like in the end. Even the clients don't know. No one knows, and we don't know how long how long it basically takes to get there. And there is the big problem. So we tend to under and overestimate things on a daily basis. And that is the same thing with I know what to do, and the rest of the team just need to follow is wrong. You over or underestimate whatever there is. And in that moment, you take ownership. So no one thinks about that. This is the typical top-down, deadline-driven approach. So there is some project manager who tells everyone what, and then there's a team lead who tells how. And everyone else is just typing, right? That's not working. That was never really working well out. So that's what actually works is to really say, okay, that is a creative process. So you need room to do that. And it's, do it in small iterations. This is why I like agile and extreme programming so much, because you do it in small iterations. You actually say, okay, this is the first thing we're going to do as a team. At best, we're working on just one or two things about that as a team. And you as a leadership person, you provide just the boundaries. That's what I say as a CTO. So I like to see you define the boundaries, and everything inside the boundaries is up to the developers. So if you say you want to become a role model in a team, you want to take ownership, or you should take ownership, then I need to provide you the trust to take ownership of that part, which means you decide how we do the AI part, the UI part, or the backend part, or the integration part, and you can of course discuss it with others. So you are not a sole definition person, but it is your domain in the team. So when we talk about that, people should look up to you, and the more you practice that, the more people do that naturally. This is the reason why we need to leave them room. It is not just that's the big fear of CEOs and people who actually finance that, is we give them too much room, it costs a lot of money, and they do the wrong thing. Well, when you as a CEO doing the wrong thing, it's like, it was my money, it was my... you don't trust others to do so. And that is a big problem, because these kind of teams with low trust, so low trust environment, tends to fall apart quickly. A lot of fluctuation in terms of people leave, people go, burnouts, all these kind of things. That is not good for any future of any company. No one wants to be there. Everyone hates Mondays. Everyone looking up for Fridays, especially Friday afternoons. That is not good. That never was good, actually, right? And if you're looking forward to see your team again and 2 weeks of vacation, great, but I actually want to go back to my team, that is a sign that you have some place and purpose. Maslow's pyramid, purpose, and those kind of things is the upper thing. Our modern society isn't good at purpose, right? And we need to create a space where you can, even though you are not an entrepreneur, you are not a fancy founder or something like that, but you are still someone with, that is mine. That is my domain in my team. This is where I want to go. This is where I want to become good at, right? And there are people on LinkedIn, when you follow people and you see those people know exactly what their domains are. They are good in that. They love this. They don't need to be fancy. They just do their craft very, very well. And that is a sign that people were in such environments, because otherwise you are only just I'm just a worker node. I'm just getting tickets. I need to get this done. So they only focus on, oh, what's the next ticket? I have so many tickets. This is my deadline. I need to find shortcuts. It is like the only ownership you have is finding shortcuts for degrading quality to get that done somehow, that no one is blaming you that you didn't get the timeline. But if it's then bad and you have technical debt and all these kind of things and delays for the actual release, then you are incompetent as a developer. That is an environment I don't want to be in. I never want to be in such an environment, to be honest.
Yeah, I really like that narrative. I think that's awesome. The one last note on that, I think, before going to the next pillar, that it came up when you were talking about trust. I think a lot of the time, especially from a leadership perspective, we talk about trust as in you must earn the trust from your team, which I think is incredibly important. It goes the other way too. So if you're trying to become a leader, you need to make sure that you can trust others to go take steps, to go be accountable. If they mess up, we want psychological safety where it's not like, okay, you're off the team, you suck, you messed up. It's like, nope, what do we learn from this? How do we get better? But you're giving people that space. So trust has to go both ways. But I really like your narrative around that. That was awesome.
Thanks. So the next one is craft a vision and a mission. So that we have this, we are on a mission, something like that. You hear the leadership coaches always talking about these vague things of a mission and a goal and military things and so fancy, but there is a big truth to it. So we are back to the old story, the hero's journey. Again, we all understand the hero's journey. This is the reason why Netflix is so strong and Hollywood exists. So all stories are basically the same. So you have a 3 basic act structure and everything happens inside that structure. So first of all, you have a problem. We are at there's a problem, the business problem, some form of problem, right? And there is this, you go into the apex and then you go into the final ending where there's just a solution, the growth for everyone, the nice thing. So this is the idea. And if you want to motivate, now we are at the part where we actually need to motivate people. So you have the trust already of your people. People are following you, so you are then a leader, right? Because people are following you, you are a leader, right? This is a relation. And now what's now? So you need to get the people moving, right? You give them ownership, they do. But on some point in time, you need to give them motivation every day to move on that journey step by step forward. Because it is not always la la land, right? It is a little bit like there are days where people are missing, people are sick, there is a backlash, maybe people got left, get laid off because of budget problems. There are so many reasons why things aren't really, going well, right? And you need to do something.
Every day that things aren't going perfect, right? There's always something that's
exactly. We are out of time, stress, bad day for people. Something happened, right? There's something like that. And you as a leader, you need to create a vision of what you do. So normally in a company, the highest vision is coming from the executive. For the tech world, it's typically the CTO who are having some form of vision. And this vision, it basically goes down and every team recreates its own part of that story, which the team is then going, right? This is those sub-visions, but they are all aligned to the top vision in the moment. Right. And we need to do that, and we need to understand as a leadership person that everyone expects us to narrate this and to define this vision. Because this vision is physically, basically very far away from the typical developer. The developer is code base, it's how we deploy, how we solve problems, my domain, but not the strategy. It's not the big tactical aspects, not why we do that. So you translate the why of the company, the why of the product, the why of your big unit you are working in with your team into the why of the team. Why are you actually going to implement this? Why is it important? And you as an UX engineer or a backend engineer are actually doing your parts. What is your purpose in that story? That is the actual vision. So if the vision is just a typography on the wall which no one reads, it's not a vision. The vision is what is lived, right? This is the reason why it's so hard to basically translate vision through text or something like that, or a memo. So you need to translate that in a way that humans do that for centuries. And that is by being present, by body language, by speaking to people, by translating that idea with emotion. And this emotion, this spark needs to jump over to the others, and they need to tell the other, oh, we are on this vision now. The best thing you can have is when your employees talk to their spouses about their current vision in the company. Then you have done everything right. Because then they believe in that and they start to narrate their version of that. And that is actually the vision. That is the reason why we move. That is the purpose, the basically the apex in Maslow's pyramid.
That's such a... I don't know if I ever thought about it that way, but that last example of like someone communicating a vision like from work to their spouse as an example, right? Nothing is making them do that. Right? It's not like, oh, their pay is going up because they're telling their spouse. There's no like external motivation to do it. They're doing it because they're like, this is awesome. Like, like we're this is the mission. They're excited about it. They have their version of it, so they'll tell it. So it's like I think that's a very interesting like indicator that if people are doing that like you probably got something going on that's pretty solid. So, yeah, I like the idea that you're saying it's not just about like having something written and saying like we do that. I think I kind of equate this to like team culture and stuff where you don't just say like in words, our culture is boom, boom, boom. No, culture is this like you live it. It's the observation of what's actually happening. You don't dictate what the culture is. You can do things that try to influence the culture and move it in a direction, but at the end of the day, it's sort of like the symptom of whatever's going on underneath, right? So you don't get to dictate it. And I would say with the vision, you can outline it. You can do these things and sort of say we want to go in this direction, but a lot of it is like if you're embodying it, then that's actually putting it into practice.
I have a nerdy example which often helps people to understand is the typical party-based role-playing games.
Okay, I'm perfectly aligned to this, by the way, because that's my entire life is role-playing games. So yeah,
great.
Keep going.
Good. So games like you have a party, but it's a little bit like every time it's the same. So there are a lot of games out there, right? Who basically it's often called sandboxes or those sandbox elements. You have a team, a blank page of some characters, right? And you don't know exactly what will happen. You have you're not bound to those characters right now. But and sometimes you even like, I don't like this character much. It's like, maybe I really need to restart. You are insecure. And then with every step, with every little quest, with every little success, maybe you have lost an party member, something like that over time. You know, those little stories, those little relationships, you know, they craft what the actual story is. So you don't know the story in the beginning. The story develops, like your journey develops as well. And you are just a leadership person who makes that all possible. So you don't define that story. You don't write that story. You just help to narrate the story. It's a little bit like that. You're just a little bit like the player who's helping those characters to make decisions or something like that. And that is how you do it. Not as a micromanager, more like an inspirational person. And this is how, in the end, these bonds exist, where people then telling their spouses about that, because that is an exciting thing, to be part of that group of people doing these kind of things. And if you have that, it is okay to come to Monday into the office. It's totally fine, right? And that is an indicator that that things are actually working out. So it gets better over time.
I like that. I think one final thought before going to the last pillar is you talked about why a lot, right? And I love this because I think it's such an important word that people don't think about a lot. And this is kind of like maybe a challenge or a homework for the viewers and listeners, which is if you are someone who is leading, I challenge you to try experimenting with the teams that you're working with. If you haven't been doing a good job of explaining why you are doing things, try it out. See how much more engaged people get over time. And the inverse, if you are someone who is an individual contributor, you're not necessarily in a position where you're leading projects yet, which is many junior developers are probably in this kind of scenario. If you're working on stuff and you're like, if your reason for why you're doing it is because someone just told me to, go to the person who told you to do it and say, hey, just curious, like, I know what I'm supposed to be doing, I understand that, but I would love to understand, like, why, like, how does this fit into the bigger picture with our customers or like our mission and stuff, and see if you can get that gap closed. Because I suspect that when you start fundamentally understanding why, you will be much more engaged in your work versus someone told me to do this, guess I have to go do this so I can close the Jira ticket. But
exactly. So that's not a healthy culture, and that's not a purpose for you. So you will never feel more purpose than I actually do code.
Right.
So it is the same as a production line worker. It is nothing more. It is predefined, and you will be the person who is afraid to be substituted by AI, right? Because that is exactly what AI is doing for us, or tries to do, try doing for us, right? So don't be that person. Connect, and that is it. That's actually that easy, because you can go to your team manager or something like that and ask for that question. You can get a good response, and if you don't get a response for the third time, maybe it's time to leave.
Yeah, honestly, I think if the people that you're following don't actually know why, or they're incapable of articulating it, it genuinely might not be a good spot, because they may not know, or they just may be, I don't like using this word because it's a little bit too strong, but they might be incompetent in that regard. So
they simply don't care about you.
Yeah.
If they never told the why, they don't care about you. If they tell you the why, they care about you.
Yeah.
It's a simple, it is a relationship. So if there is no relationship, there is no why.
Yeah.
It is how we are wired like that. So we are used to live in Dunbar's number is a very good example. We are used to live in groups of 5 to 50 people. That is how the human brain is wired. And we are dependent. We even have fears to be not part of a group. We don't like to be aloners. So entire networks like LinkedIn are based on the idea not to be alone in what we do, right? And so if you feel alone and just with your thing, and you are afraid to ask, afraid of every deadline, you are alone. No one cares about you. So it's not a good place to be in. Just like
totally
that's the pure reality.
Yeah. Meaningful challenges. What does this look like to you?
Exactly. The last pillar of the very basics is challenging people. So now we have the basics. We have credibility. We are role models. We have a vision. We are on the move. We are in the story. Everything develops. So what now? So in order, sometimes, so that's the only thing which differentiates being a leadership person in an engineering area and being a gardener in your garden is that you actually need to challenge people. You don't challenge your plants, but you need to challenge human beings, because we have resistance, as I said in the beginning. It always comes back to resistance and what I call, or what I like to call, as other great authors and the Greeks, like the muse, the connection to the creative power, which we need as developers. And this creative power is, infused by the idea of the why, right? I can be creative because I can contribute to something, so I need to be creative. Which means you need to challenge the people to be creative and not be resistant. Because resistance, as I said, is always there. There is nothing so on spot every day like resistance. But it's actually easy to overcome. We are just afraid of it. But if we overcome that, it is okay. And in a team where a lot of people are, you have, let's say, mixed levels of people with, let's say, a strong mind, inner peace, good habits, discipline. Those level varies, right? You as a leadership person, you need to constantly keep challenging people in a way which is not the deadline. I don't mean you need to get this done. No, what I mean is
do it faster.
No. What I really mean is try to find a good solution for that. It doesn't feel well right now. Can you find a solution to make that better? Challenge the people to take a problem seriously. Let's say a problem they take ownership of, and they find a solution for that as a team, and challenge the team to find a solution for that. So you bring the problem from outside, part of the narration of the story, of the vision, but the challenge is the team's challenge to actually fix that. It's not yours. So the typical bad team leader in my I was like that for so many years, sitting next to the team and try to do get everything. So you need to do that. Maybe we can do that. So you always try to have the answer for everyone already. That is very bad. I was one of those persons. That doesn't work. You need to challenge them to make that. So if you see that your team is talking to each other, right, and try to find solutions without coming to you, you have done everything right. So you need to challenge them to find the solutions. Otherwise, there is no ownership. And that is what I meant with you don't know how B looks like on this journey, the destination, because your team is defining that by facing problems which are their challenges, and they find the solutions for that. And that is the interesting part for you as a leader, because the story develops, and you are the bard, you are the storyteller, you are the dungeon master, right? You are the person who's narrating this with a general idea, but the party is defining how the story actually looks like. And then people love to come, and they will create great products because they care about those products.
I think that's awesome, right? It's like I think a lot of this comes back to giving space to people to go solve challenges, right? Like I literally was making a video about this earlier this week because I like to just record a lot of stuff. And one of my thoughts was around this idea that like, I don't have like data from every engineer that's ever lived, that kind of thing, but I feel like most engineers really value being able to solve interesting challenges. And if they're told again how to do it, like here's the challenge and like go implement the solution this way, then you've kind of removed probably what I imagine is a lot of the joy that comes from like being a software engineer. It's like, you just told me how to go do it. So like now I just press the buttons and it happens, right? I'm obviously oversimplifying, but I think a lot of the interesting part for software engineers is like, this is an interesting challenge. I have to go figure out, based on data, based on my analysis, which path we're going down. You have to work with other people. They're going to have different opinions on it. They might look at the same data and see different outcomes based on how they value those things, the weight of those things, and you work together to come up with solutions. Like, to me, as a software engineer, like that is the really fun, interesting part.
Yeah.
So don't remove that.
Don't remove that from your team. It's your team's thing. So you have decided to become a leader, so be a leader, right? So you can take part in a role. So there's often the case that you have this type of cornerstone senior type of leader,
Sure,
who is actually working with the team, but a special role in the team as well. So it's more like the team captain, but it's not the boss managing person. Everyone needs to have at least the right and the space to make decisions for the team in that space. Otherwise, this person is not a team member, it's a servant of the team. That's a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a point in my career before Microsoft where when I was managing small teams, I was still coding alongside the team. And there's one team in particular I remember very fondly. We had one guy who's very good at doing like research, and like we could give him the most complicated things and he would work at them and always have incredible breakthroughs. That was his space. I was still working in the team coding. A lot of what I was doing, like the ownership part that I took on, wasn't everything. It was a lot of like user interface workflows and sort of how the code was designed to handle that. But that's something I did and took responsibility for. There's other individuals on the team that could do other parts, especially integrating with devices, and they had their own ownership. So even though I was leading the team, I never took the position of like, oh, I will just go tell you how to do all these parts. I'm going to be part of the team with you, and I'm going to own this little piece and then help try to lead the rest of the group. But you're making your decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I love these pillars. I think they're awesome. So I wanted to say thank you so much for sharing them and for walking through. Adrian, I'll get links and stuff from you after, and I'll have them in the description and all that. But can you give us a rundown? Where can people find you? Because I know you have a newsletter, but what else? Like, where can people see your content?
Primarily on LinkedIn, it does make sense. My name, Adrian Stanek, Stanek, and we are basically, I'm a leadership coach. I'm a founder myself, talking about these kind of topics there. Just go to my profile page and you will be able to contact me. No problem.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you making the time to do this. And I got to like have a lot of takeaway from this, so I'm hopeful that other people can. And, just a reminder for folks, you don't have to be an engineering manager or have a team lead or tech lead title. These are all things that I think are going to be foundational for helping you grow in your career. Even if you're junior, there's a lot of stuff that you can take away. Start applying, start asking questions about why, right? There's things you can be doing as you're progressing. So Adrian, thank you again.
Thanks.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a great opportunity. Really appreciate your content. Just wanted to say that. So that was the reason why we actually came together, right? So following in your YouTube, you're doing your YouTube, I do my YouTube, and that's actually, I think we had a lot of overlap. So it was a good thing to talk. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.